Recently, we created a tier list for where all the weapons sit in Season 4, and now it's time to do the same for all of the legends. Tier ratings in this are going to be a bit different from how the guns work, simply because there are much fewer legends. The differences between them are not quite as stark as some weapons are, for example. So, S tier and F tier are effectively going to be removed. We're only going to be ranking from A to D, and here are the basics of the ranking definitions. An A tier legend would be one that is a top priority for ranked. It is going to be the few legends that are generally considered by the player base at large to be the strongest legends, whether in high level ranked or in tournament level play. B tier legends will be second rate. They will still be just fine for ranked in most cases, as long as you have a team that is properly built and has trained together around the fact that legend is in the composition, but is ultimately not one of the top tiers, but is still more than plenty good enough for ranked when played appropriately. A C tier legend is one that is really borderline. It's one that most likely, for the majority of people playing ranked, even down to more average levels, it's probably not going to serve you or the team super well. However, if you are a very good player, you have a very good team, and you are making a special strategy and special playstyle to go alongside this legend, they can absolutely be made to work. But it is perhaps a bit more questionable, and these legends are definitely third rate to some of the absolute top tier, most meta-defined legends, but still good enough. Then we'll get down to D tier as our lowest tier. This will be for only a couple of legends where they are almost certainly completely outclassed in the ranked space and have not really a whole lot of reason to ever be picked if your goal is to get the highest possible rank in your ranked lobbies. But if you're going to play them in casual, or you just simply like the characters and you find them to be fun, there's nothing necessarily wrong with them or inherently bad about them, for the most part at least, that makes them like unplayable or terrible or a detriment to your team. It's more that they just don't offer enough of a benefit for ranked to be worth picking over some of the other legends. With that being said, none of the legends in this game are so weak or so bad that they are completely unplayable and actively harmful to your team, but plenty are demonstrably better than others. So let's take a look at who goes where. Going in alphabetical order, we will start with Bangalore, who I believe is a very, very solid B tier legend. Her passive allows her to move faster whenever a bullet misses her nearly, or whenever she gets remotely close to an enemy grenade, then she will get a passive speed boost, and it's fairly significant, I might add. If you're playing in a PC metagame where AD strafing is very, very important in a lot of close range fights when those do inevitably happen, Bangalore is among the best for being evasive and able to just survive these close range engagements a little bit more consistently than some other larger legends like, say, Bloodhound or Revenant. Her tactical ability with the smoke grenades is actually very, very solid as well, which can provide cover for your team to move, can provide cover for you to get a resurrection off, can simply provide extra damage if someone is 1 HP behind a piece of cover. You can just lob the smoke grenade at them and down them. Not something that I end up doing very, very often. I certainly find that to be more consistent using Revenant's silence ability as a damaging ability, more so than using the smoke as a damaging one, but the possibility still remains, and with someone who plays a lot of this character, that can absolutely be mastered in pretty short order, giving you a multitude of uses for this one ability, which you also get 2 charges of, which is very, very helpful. Her ultimate is most certainly the weakest part of her kit, at least in my opinion, but it's not necessarily bad either. The ability to effectively deny an enemy team from resurrecting a teammate who is out in the open in open world fights is plenty powerful. The fact that you can do 40 damage per explosion of the bombs is pretty powerful. The fact that it shell shocks people and slows them for a really long time, almost like an extended arc grenade effect, is really, really powerful. The only thing is that it takes so long between ability throw and detonation. So it's maybe not the most consistent thing in the world, but when it does actually hit, it's really, really good. And there's certainly worse ultimates out there, that is for sure. At the end of the day, though, despite Bangalore being just really, really rock solid of a character, there are some that are simply better and are more preferred as your first picks for a super sweaty ranked team. does not make Bangalore bad or unusable. It is actually quite far from it, but I think it's fair to make the distinction that in most people's minds, when you're getting into ranked, Bangalore is kind of a second-rate legend, despite the fact that she is so good. Next up, we have Bloodhound. This is a legend who has, for the most part, been receiving buff after buff after buff since the game has come out, and yet still, in my opinion, they feel undertuned. They feel not quite good enough to be competitive and worth taking into a high-level ranked lobby, although I generally don't play high-level ranked lobbies all too often, so they are absolutely more than fine for casual play, which is where the majority of my playtime is spent, and I enjoy the legend well enough. They do feel quite large with their hitbox size. Luckily, they don't have low profile, but unfortunately, they don't have fortified either, so Bloodhound is just in this weird space of having a nearly Gibraltar or Caustic sized hitbox, really poor AD strafing animations, which admittedly are less important on consoles than on keyboard and mouse, and, well, the head hitbox leaves a bit to be desired as well, but with these characteristics out of the way, some of the abilities are indeed very, very powerful, and the legend is not terrible by any means, but outclassed for sure. We'll start with the Q. Your Eye of the Allfather reveals enemies out to a very large range and is on a 35-second cooldown. The unfortunate part about it is that the wall hack that you get from it only lasts for a couple of seconds, so you only have maybe a second or so to actually utilize it after you're done with the animation, where you can actually fire your gun and potentially pre-fire someone around the corner and obliterate them thanks to your Q. It's just unfortunately not a thing that really seems to come up a lot in my playtime with Bloodhound, but your mileage absolutely may vary, and if this is a great ability for you, then by all means, it's very valuable. Keep using it. As for your ultimate, this is another kind of weird one. Everyone's opinions on this that I've talked to seems to vary a little bit. I like it personally, but lots of people dislike the fact that it makes your vision go completely grayscale with the bright red targets. I mean, sure, it's nice that you have just threat vision for everything at all times, but it's the fact that it changes the way that your screen appears in a significant way while also altering your field of view. It's just very jarring to people. It's certainly jarring to me. It makes my aim feel really weird when I use it, and you know, sometimes I feel like, wow, I pop the ult and like the field of view change, my aim suddenly gets better. Other times it happens and it's like, wow, my aim feels absolutely terrible. I was perfectly on beforehand, and now that I have this ult active, I can't do anything. So it's all personal problems, and it's one of these things where if Bloodhound just fits you as a player, then by all means play them. But I really think that if your goal is to make it to Apex Predator, or you make it to Masters at least, something like that, it's gonna be a tougher climb, most likely, if you're using Bloodhound over other legend. However, if you can make it work, then you are the exception to the rule, and good for you. But Bloodhound just seems a little weak to me personally. Next up, we have Caustic, who I think is also a C-tier legend. This is one of my favorites in terms of characterization, in terms of playstyle. I love the abilities. It's one of my favorites stylistically, but I don't think that, again, this is one of the best legends you can possibly run in high-level ranked. Unless, and this is kind of where an asterisk comes in, unless you are like an actual professional team who plays with the same people all day, all night, every day, day in and day out, and you develop a strategy in perhaps tournament-level play where you are basically playing what is called a rat strategy, or a really slow strategy where you are hiding in buildings, not even putting your traps up, and you are doing everything possible to not reveal your location, only fight if you absolutely have to, and you take it to the very end game, and then you set up the final circle building, and then you just play that way. That is a strategy that I have heard rumblings of like one competitive, like professional team using to some success. I don't know how good that actually is. I have not seen those matches myself. I don't know how prevalent that actually is in the real world, but it's something that I have heard some rumblings about, and I'd be remiss to not at least mention it. But in terms of just ranked play or even casual play, the legend is okay. They're fine if you play them a lot and you learn to master the traps and using them as cover and using them to make it really difficult for down people to get resurrected and to just choke off other areas of movement for other teams. And there's a lot of little tech that you can learn and employ with Caustic and have it be really, really good, but it just takes a lot of work. If you're willing to put the work in, then you're getting a very solidly decent legend out of it for sure, but the team harming aspects of it are always going to remain, where you're going to slow your teammates with the gas, whether it's from your ult or from your traps. They're going to be slowed, their vision's going to be slightly blurred, and everyone's going to complain about it. And it's one of those things where if you find a group of people that you can play with consistently, and you can get used to dealing with this, and you can get used to playing around it and setting your traps in such a way where it's not a big problem for your team most of the time, the legend has a whole freaking lot of potential. The damage output from these gas traps is immense. The fact that if you get one tick on an enemy and they are immediately slowed, almost as if they were hit by an arc grenade, and they are highlighted like they have threat scope on them, at least for you, the power there is immense. If you catch someone out and you even just catch them with a single tick of gas, then you are in a position to absolutely laser them down with whatever full auto gun you have. So the character has potential, and I think that even with minor buffs, they could be very, very powerful, and you might even reach a degenerate state where almost every team feels like they have to have a Caustic because the usage rate of Caustic is getting high enough that gas is getting so common that you need to have a Caustic of your own just to work through an enemy Caustic's gas and actually like play in position through that. And then you can have this terrible metagame snowballing of just Caustics everywhere. So this is a legend that I think probably should stay about where they are. I think they're good enough that you can have a lot of fun with them in casual. I think that they're close to good enough that you can use them in ranked with a really organized team and find some great success with him. But I don't know that this would be a legend that I would advocate for major buffs for. If I would do anything to this legend just to appease the masses, it might be to reduce the slow that teammates receive while being in friendly gas by a little bit. I wouldn't remove it, but I would perhaps maybe try half as much of slowing as there currently is and see how that feels for people, and just try to maybe go from there. But anyways, let's not linger on Caustic for too long. He's a C-tier legend, I think, which means that he is potentially good, even all the way to really high-level ranked with the proper team. But if you're just an average person looking for a quick rule of thumb on who's good and who's bad, I would not waste time on Caustic for ranked specifically. Next up, let's talk about Crypto. This is a legend that I think teeters between both the C and B tiers. I'm not 100% sure which one he specifically belongs in, so experience has taught me that when you're unsure, it's probably better just to put them in the higher tier. It's probably better to overrate them than to underrate them, so we'll just go ahead and put him in B for now. Crypto he's just like really plain Jane, kind of like Bangalore to me, in the sense that, you know, his hitbox is okay, his 80 strafing is okay, so those parts of him, just his fundamental like hitboxes and everything like that, seem fine. They're not amazing, they're not terrible, they're just, you know, it's fine, it's baseline, right? The thing about this legend though is that wall hacks and like continuous long-term wall hacks with his Q, which is his drone, is incredibly powerful. If you're able to set Crypto up in such a way and set opposing teams up in such a way where you can set your drone up, and if your opponents try to move in such a way or aim in such a way that they can actually shoot the drone down, that it means they die to your teammates who are pushing them, then, you know, Crypto has not even shot a bullet and been immensely powerful and useful for your team. So he's able to accomplish a whole lot when it feels like you're doing nothing at all. And then by the same token, sometimes it feels like you're piloting the drone like a madman, you're getting off good EMPs, and yet because you're not there to fight with your team because you're busy driving the drone around, it feels like you wasted time by playing the legend. You would have been better just having Wraith, Pathfinder, and something else really aggressive and getting up in people's faces, holding W, and clicking on their faces instead. So there is a lot to learn with Crypto. I think he is one of the most technical legends in the game, which I guess is appropriate for a legend who is literally all about using tech. So fair enough, I guess. But it takes a lot of time and effort to get really good with crypto. I think that there are little minute, just these minor subtle strategies of when you drone, when you don't drone, where you park the drone, how you position it, what callouts you make to your team, when you ult, when you don't. There is so much in here that is outside the scope of a tier list that I think people need to practice a lot and learn to get good with the legend and to really maximize his usefulness. But as he currently stands, assuming a very competent and good player is on him, he's able to do some really, really degenerate things that no other legend can, and he's able to create impossible situations for opposing teams, which it's good. The legend is just simply good. I really don't know why more people don't play him. If I had to pick one legend who I think is the most underrated in Apex Legends, it's probably Crypto, which I guess gives more credence to me just go ahead and bumping him up to B tier just for the sake of it. He's honestly great, but he always has that downside of if the drone dies, then he literally has no tactical, he has no ultimate, his passive is, okay, nothing, you know? Like, sure, he could still use the map scanning pylons, whatever those are called, but if you're in a situation where your drone is getting shot down, you're probably not in a situation where you're safe enough to be using one of those anyways. So a survey beacon is so if your drone is getting shot down, then you're not in a good enough position to use a survey beacon anyways. So he still just has really no passive, in my opinion, or no tactical or ult when that ult is down, or when the drone is down. So the legend will always have that ultimate downside that you have to worry about, but luckily, with the drone being so powerful and with it being so difficult to hit with its small size, high speed, and sometimes questionable server hit registration, it's mostly fine. I think the legend is good. I think that if you spend a lot of time learning them, you'll find quite a lot of success with them, especially if you get on a microphone and you communicate with your team verbally. Next up, we have Gibraltar, who is pretty solidly an A-tier legend. They are absolutely a top-tier pick for high-level ranked. You're going to see a lot of Gibraltars, whether it be in casual play, ranked play, tournament play, or anything in between. Gibraltar is where it's at. The gun shield is really strong, coupled with fortified. It's a lot of health. If you were to shoot a Gibraltar straight on into the gun shield, and then every subsequent shot were to go into their chest, you would need to deal pretty well over 300 points of damage to take Gibraltar down with purple armor. And if he has red armor, that's just even more. So coupling that all with Dome Shield, faster healing, and resurrections for the team within the Dome Shield, his ultimate, which does really good damage, drops relatively quickly, shuts down pushes really, really fast, de-pushes teams really, really well. The legend just simply has it all. He has big health, he has a good passive, a good tactical, a good ultimate, and not only one passive, he's got like 4 passives, it feels like. Gun shield, plus faster team healing, plus faster team resurrections, plus fortified. Like, the legend just has so much going for them. They've gotten buff after buff after buff after buff since launch, and while in the most recent update, they did get brought down a little bit with their gun shield going down to 50 health from 75. Man, is this legend strong. If you're not already playing Gibraltar and you're not already using them in any level of play, you absolutely should, but just make sure that you are aiming down sights a lot, because if you're not using that gun shield and you're not 80 strafing properly, if you don't have the gun shield, then you're gonna die fast with Gibraltar. But as long as you are using your utilities correctly, you're dancing in and out of your Dome Shield, and you're just playing the legend properly, my goodness, is he strong. Next up, let's talk Lifeline, who, I know we just talked about Gibraltar. Lifeline is basically, in a lot of ways, at least from a team standpoint, kind of just the worst Gibraltar, which is unfortunate. She did recently receive a small buff in the Old Ways event, which we'll talk about in just a moment, but I do think she's pretty solidly a B tier legend. I think that you can take her all the way up into top level ranked and do just great with her, and she'll be a super great boon to your team, but I don't think that she is like top 4, top 5. I don't think that she is like the #1 best that, like, if you're a new player and you are trying to grind out ranked and you want to bring the best possible team compositions with you and your 2 friends, I wouldn't recommend Lifeline in the top 3. I think B tier is pretty fair for her, especially being just in a lot of ways an inferior Gibraltar. And how is that? Why is that? Well, like we already kind of talked about a little bit at least, Gibraltar gets a lot of passive abilities while inside of his dome. And he gives those to his team as well in some instances. So, inherent to just Gibraltar, when he's inside of his dome, he will resurrect teammates faster. Quite a bit faster, actually. He gives the entire team faster heals while inside the dome, and it's on like a 20-second cooldown or so. So he's going to be doing this very, very frequently. If you watch tournament level play, it is defined by Gibraltars and domes all over the place, all the way out to the very end of the game in a lot of circles. It's not always, like, it's not a guarantee that you're going to see Gibraltar domes in final circle with like 3 teams all in a, 3 square foot radius, but it's really common. You're going to see it all the time. It is as much a staple as Pathfinder Zipline and Wraith Portal. Just Gibraltar's dome is just intensely, intensely good. Now, Lifeline does have some good stuff. She has her Resurrection Shield, which you can play games with, you can bait enemies with, you can use it as a combat tool, as well as just a purely team-focused resurrection ability. She gets this inherent self-heal, which she will always, always have, which is really, really great. The Dock Healing Drone is going to give teammates a lot of value. It's going to let them heal up and not necessarily be so beholden to carrying maybe 2 stacks of syringes. They can instead get away with just 1. Or if you're in really scrappy situations, then that will help out as well. There's situations where when you get on these new blue loot pills, you can get some extra loot for your team, be it hop-ups, normalizing your knockdown shields, so make sure you have everyone at least has a level 1 knockdown, because those are nearly guaranteed out of those things. And you'll get a couple small heals, sometimes maybe like syringes or shield cells, which is just nice. Like in those early game, sometimes even in mid-game times throughout your match, if you're in a really quiet server and you just don't have a lot of combat going on, those can really help you to make sure you have just the basics, because you won't have enemies to kill and take theirs sometimes. And I guess this can help normalize it, but this buff that she got from the old ways with even having these, I don't think is a big enough deal to affect your tier positioning. Now, as for one speculative thing I wanted to talk about, because Revenant was buffed through the roof with this patch, his silence is able to turn off Gibraltar's gun shield, which was not the case just like 2 weeks ago, but now it is the case. So if we get into a Revenant meta, my prediction would be that we may see Lifeline starting to be picked occasionally instead of Gibraltar in some compositions, just because if silences are everywhere and Gibraltar can't use any of his abilities and he's just a fat guy that can do literally nothing, why not just play Lifeline instead for the small hitbox, great 80 strafing animations? Like, what's to lose? You know, if she gets silenced, she literally does not care about it because her passives are still active. I think there is potential there, but outside of that, I think if you're really wanting to play Lifeline, perhaps consider Gibraltar instead. But Lifeline is by no means a bad pick. She is a great legend still. I think people underrate her and dump on her a bit too much. She's still good. Totally fine if you choose to play her, I think. Next up, we have Mirage. She was our first D-tier legend, and this is definitely one that I would not recommend that you bring into Ranked. I don't think they offer a whole lot of value in Ranked. I think their only good piece of their kit is their ultimate, where you can go invisible and run faster while you're invisible. So repositioning and doing weird things to enemy teams because of that is really, really fun. I particularly like using it in casual when I'm playing as people who I know are not super duper high level players. I will just pop the ult and literally hold W and run at them, come out of cloak right next to them, and then just dump a prowler or a peacekeeper into them, and they just never know what hit them, and it's really fun for me. But that doesn't make the legend necessarily good. I think the best usages of them are simply for cloaking behind cover, where they can't see all of the decoys come out, so they don't know you've actually cloaked, and then you just run and reposition, and then you start shooting them from another weird angle, and you create an opportunity for your team in that way. I think that is where Mirage shines the best. It's also, I wouldn't even say really good, but helpful in situations where you and your teammates are all in one tight death ball and you are death balling onto an opponent, and you're all holding W, and you all have 99s, Peacekeepers, Prowlers, whatever the case may be, and you decide to press Q and just shoot a decoy out. If you shoot that out at a slightly different angle or slightly ahead of your team, perhaps your opponent who is panicking, knowing they're being rushed by a full team, will shoot it, waste ammo on it, waste time on it, and then if they're aiming down sights, then they will be holding still, making it very easy for you and your teammates to just laser them down instead. It doesn't necessarily make Mirage good, it's kind of a win more characteristic about him, but I suppose it's something that you can do. I'm trying to look at the Legend in the most positive light that I can, but ultimately, if my goal is to go into Ranked and make my way to Apex Predator, I really don't want to play as Mirage, and I don't think that having a Mirage on my team is the correct call unless the player playing them is so insanely good that it doesn't matter what Legend they play. They're just going to outshoot, outposition, and outmaneuver, outcommunicate, out everything else other players, that their Legend choice almost doesn't matter. But, this is a tier list. We're talking specifically about Legend performance, not the players behind them necessarily. So, I don't know. Mirage just doesn't cut it for me. I don't think he should for you either. If you want to play casual because you think he's fun, you think he's funny, you like his abilities, bamboozle people, make player laugh, haha, sure, go for him. He's fine. Like, there's no issues with that whatsoever. But, in my opinion, for high-level ranked, look elsewhere. Continuing our slog through D tier, we have Octane. Octane is also one of my favorite legends stylistically from a character standpoint. I love being able to press Q to go fast and having the stim. Stim was all I used for 5 years in Titanfall 1 and 2. So when I heard that Octane was the first DLC legend being released, I was incredibly excited for them. And they very much fall short. The hitbox is fine. It's okay, not amazing, but it's okay, I guess. Their AD strafing, at least when stimmed, is okay. It's fine. Like, being able to be a little bit faster while AD strafing is certainly a good trait. But that's really all the Legend has going for them. The passive health regeneration on their passive is not super impactful to the game state most of the time. It can help you to maybe carry a few fewer syringes, but meh. I don't know. It doesn't seem all of that useful most of the time. It doesn't seem like it's making game-changing levels of difference. Your Q being stim is cool. It's nice. It makes you move faster, but you don't climb faster, you don't climb farther, you don't reload faster, you don't really do much anything else faster except simply move. And the fact that it costs you health to do that and it only lasts for a couple of seconds, it's just not all that great. Couple that with the fact that it forces you to wield certain weapons with one hand, and their one-handed handling characteristics are noticeably worse than holding it with two hands. So, for example, if you were to use a wingman and use stim, and you're using that left hand to hold the stim needle in your chest while you're holding the wingman with one hand in the right, the gun recoils differently than it would if you're holding it with two hands. I've done a video on this a good year ago now, comparing it with Gibraltar, where if you have gun shield active versus inactive, how the wingman's recoil animation appears on your screen. I don't think it actually affects the recoil pattern. Like, if you were to fire it at full speed at a wall and you were to compare, I don't think it makes a difference there. But the visual recoil is noticeably different, and it's weird and awkward, and I don't like it. And a lot of people back in the day when Octane first came out complained about it too. So it's something that you should absolutely consider about this legend. Another ultimate, the trampoline, is also fine. Like, it's not bad, but it doesn't really offer you the same mobility as something like a Pathfinder zipline would that's usable for the whole team. And it's just, it's fine. It's not necessarily bad, apart from the fact that it puts you in this huge predictable arc. It makes you very easy to shoot out of the air by experienced and seasoned FPS players. Whereas if you're on a Pathfinder zipline, then you can just spam jumping on and jumping off of that zipline and spinning around in circles while you're on it to make your body very difficult to hit, and you can evade shots that way. In this game, with this jump pad, if you just jump off the pad, there's really no evasion that you can do. If you get lasered down by a controller player or by a really adept PC player, especially one that has like a charge rifle, for example, you're in trouble. You're just in big trouble. It can result in sometimes it can result in deaths. And I don't know. Like, the Legend is fun still. Like, if you're going to play them in casual, you can certainly do really fun and good things with them, and they'll be absolutely fine. Like, I have won plenty of games playing Octane. I've never necessarily felt that Octane has held me back or held my team back. I think the thing that I'm trying to get at here with this Legend is that Pathfinder does Octane's job so much better. There's just kind of no point to picking Octane. And, like, even Revenant does some of Octane's job better, where he climbs farther, he climbs faster, he crouch walks faster. Like, why does Revenant have those things and Octane doesn't? There just simply seems to be this disconnect where Octane just does not quite fit into the game the way that he should. Other Legends do bits of his job better than he does, and he's not even like a jack of the trades, right? He is just... He's the deuce of the trades, I suppose. This is a great opportunity for us to move into Pathfinder now next. This is an A-tier Legend. This is one of the big four, in my opinion. This is one of the Legends that you're going to see on so many ranked lobbies at all levels of play. You're going to see in so many casual teams at all levels of play. You're going to see in tournaments all the time. The mobility this Legend offers, not only personally, but for their team, and the safety of this mobility in general, is second to none. This Legend offers so much for the team that it is quite literally silly to play a Legend other than them on your team for overall team mobility. There is no reason, in my view, to pick Octane over Pathfinder. It just doesn't exist. Pathfinder's AD strafing is good. The hitboxes are good. The Legend is just good. Like, everything about them is good. There's really nothing to say here, because there's nothing to teach. There's nothing to harp on and say that there are issues here. Pathfinder is just the baseline for what a high-level competitive Legend kind of has to be. I suppose I could mention the fact that they effectively have no passive now, since that all of the recon Legends can use the sensor towers as opposed to just Pathfinder. So I suppose that's a thing that we can complain about. But Pathfinder, like, almost doesn't even need a passive, because he is just the only one in this category that is any good. If we start getting some serious buffs for Octane, then perhaps there can be some kind of, I don't know, some kind of competition between having Octane and Pathfinder on your team for mobility support, or if we were to get another Legend entirely who offers major mobility support, besides Wraith, I guess, then we can make an argument for making Pathfinder stronger inherently, but he kind of doesn't need to even have a passive given how strong his tactical and his ultimates are. He's good enough as he is. He's still top tier, and that's just the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future as far as I know. Next up, we have our 10th Legend, Revenant. This is going to be the hottest take of the video. This is going to be very spicy. This is going to go along the same lines as Crypto, where if you're not entirely sure of which tier to place a Legend in, you should probably overrate them rather than underrate them. So we're going to do that. Revenant, A tier, in my opinion, this patch. His silence and ultimate were both buffed through the roof. This Legend is very powerful now. They also lost low profile. They are now a standard Legend. They do not have the low profile debuff. Revenant's silence now has 2 charges instead of 1. Each shot will deal 10 damage from the silence ability. It will silence opponents for 20 seconds, which means no tacticals, no ultimates, but they do keep their passives, except for Gibraltar, who loses his gun shield, but that's the only exception as far as I know. His ultimate now will, when you respawn, you can respawn from the ultimate with up to 50 HP. It depends on how much you go into the totem with. So if you activate the totem with between 50 and 100 HP, when you respawn at it, you'll have 50. If you activate the totem with 1 HP, you will be respawned at the totem with 1 HP. This totem will never heal you, but they've simply reduced the amount it will hurt you if you take it while at high health. This means the totem is much more usable in pretty much all situations, whether it be offensive, defensive, as a utility for going outside of ring to do crazy weird stuff like picking up banners. It is just overall pretty much always better. It's pretty great. This character is really strong right now. He is absolutely worth your time and very much so worth experimenting with in ranked, especially to target down the deluge of Gibraltar, Pathfinder, and Wraith. Silencing all of them is critically important, and this legend is, I think, going to shake up the meta a whole lot, or at least has the potential to, if people give him enough effort and time. Next up, we have Wattson. Now, I'm going to preface this section by saying and admitting straight up, Wattson is a legend that I do not do well with, is a legend that I do not play very much, is a legend that, from a technical standpoint, I understand the least of all the legends. But, I mean, look, anyone who's doing a tier list like this there has to be some legend that they have the least experience with, right? There has to be one. If you can point it out, there's going to be one. For me, it's Wattson. This is a legend that has appeared on seemingly every team in seemingly every tournament since the day that she was brought into the game. I'm pretty confident that there is probably a really, really good reason for that. When I play as her, I find that I use her ultimate very often. Pretty much every single fight, I try to drop it to give myself an advantage with a little bit of extra health to cover for the fact that I have low profile. I find that AD strafing and hitboxes on this character when shooting at them to be not quite Wraith or Lifeline level, but to be like evasive enough where I can sometimes have significant troubles hitting her, almost like maybe more like on a Pathfinder level, where like sometimes you can just drill her and there's nothing she can do, but other times when they get that AD strafe just perfect, it can feel impossible. So she's kind of on that Pathfinder tier in my headspace. But truth be told, like, I don't have a great feel for her kit and like what the best usages for her are in ranked other than just playing rat strategies, putting 3,000 pylons into a single building, and then as soon as your first ultimate gets destroyed, you already have another one recharged to drop that, and then you can pop your 1XL to get a third one ready, so you just keep ulting and ulting and ulting. You keep the constant shield regen on your team. You keep constantly spamming down pylons and making it super impossible for people to push your team and to take the one building that you're camping out inside of, and you're hoping and praying that you get the right location to get final circle. Like, that's a playstyle that I would like imagine in my head, but I don't know if this is actually how the game really plays out with a lot of Wattsons. Typically when I play casual and not super high level ranked, so the number of Wattsons that I see is really low. The number of really good Wattsons that I see is really low. Usually when I see a good Wattson, it's just a fundamental good player who is AD strafing me and killing me with 99, as opposed to someone who is actively holding down a building and playing like the meta or the meme of what Wattson is in that whole sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and place her in A tier simply for her usage levels in ranked and for how I hear pros talking about her, or at least have in the past. The legend seems to be really, really strong, seems to be a great pick for ranked if you have the team to support them. If you're not really sure what you're doing with Wattson and you don't have a lot of practice with them in casual, maybe this is just the one that you omit and your ranked team will end up being like Wraith, Gibraltar, Pathfinder more often than not. I think that's a very solid composition, and Wattson would be, for the few of you out there that really know what you're doing with her and are going to not listen to this tier list anyways, you're going to play her because you're going to play her. Finally, we have Wraith, who I think, in what is surprising to no one, is going to be an A-tier legend, probably the best legend in the entire game. Quite frankly, I cannot imagine any reason why you wouldn't bring her on literally every team, unless you have some super specific, super tight strategy involving 3 other legends working together. But this is a first-person shooter first and an ability shooter second. And the fact that she has the best hitbox, the best AD strafing, she's so tiny, she's so fast, she has an invincibility ability, she has team mobility that can also give temporary invincibility to help you outlast late game circles, and just basically run in circles through your portal over and over and over to survive and last out ring damage to just play the game that way and win purely on ring closing and time. The legend is good in all situations, whether you're playing super aggressively, super passively, anywhere in between. The legend is always, always, always really, really, really strong. If I were to include S tier in this tier list, if I were to say that there is one legend in the game that I think is overpowered, I think Wraith would be it. And maybe one day we'll see some changes that make Wraith a little bit weaker without making her a complete dumpster to pick. But I think that just fundamentally with what abilities she has, with her passive giving her free information, with her tactical giving her literal invincibility, and her ultimate giving her entire team literal invincibility and teleportation and movement, even if they're downed, it's so incredibly strong. So anyways, everyone, that'll, I think, cover it for the tier list today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you learned something new. I hope you enjoyed the list. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below, and I'll be happy to read through, and I will try to respond to as many comments as I reasonably can. With that all being said, look forward to seeing you in a future video or on stream. Links to everything will be in the description box down below if you're interested in supporting the stream or Patreon or anything like that for all the cool stuff I'm doing. And I think that'll do it. Thank you all for being here. See you again soon. Take care.